You are now listening to Fight Life Unfiltered. Should have just got in on the WWE stuff.
Dude, I don't know. I didn't have any spandex on me. I wouldn't have fit in real well.
You know, we're rolling.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
All
thanks.
right.
I know we had to pay you to come down here because you don't want to show your face after the last
Not a big camera
conversation.
guy.
Um, Let me just, is your real first name Maximilian? Or
Yeah.
why do you not go by
Jerrell.
Maximilian?
Dude,
So I started doing it. I told 247 last time I fought for him. I was like, I want you guys to use Maximilian now. And they tried it, and the dude just goes Maximilian, and I'm like, you missed like two vowels there. Come on.
Yeah, no, I would, it's worth the extra 5 minutes of like talking to the announcer to be like, this is how you got to do it. I mean, obviously the talent takes you to where you need to go and you've got the talent, but having a name like Maximilian, you
Yeah.
could, dude, I'd come out with like a green.
I told him to walk out to a Millie by Lil Wayne.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. The walkout songs are like an important thing for me. I want to make
Yeah, I get
something
that.
like
I
want to
get
like
that
make
for
a
sure.
show out of it, you know? I don't want to just do a rap.
I always pick a different walkout song each fight too. It's like a fun thing to do. I used to care way more. Now I just
Well, you know how I think I told you before my amateur debut, I wanted DMX
oh yeah.
and I'm standing there getting ready. They're like, okay, you're up. And I'm standing on the ramp and Bullet for My Valentine, Tears Don't Fall starts playing. And I'm like, what the fuck? And they're like, go. And I'm like, no, this isn't
Yeah.
my song. And they're like, it's your, they're like calling me out. I'm like,
It's your turn now.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely kind of set my mind into the wrong direction. But
Would you walk out for your pro debut or your Amy debut?
Amy debut.
October.
Yeah, I had it was Iron by Woodkid. You remember the
You lost me.
you remember the Run Boy Run song that was like real popular a couple years ago? You know what I'm talking about?
not a clue.
Man.
Run, boy, run.
Yeah, you'd recognize it if you heard it. It was all over the
Probably.
place.
Maybe it was
But
it like a real thing or
something like that, yeah.
all right.
It was real popular on like TikTok and Instagram, but it was that guy, that artist, and it's very like instrumental, like orchestral horns, strings, that type of thing. I like that. I want to create like a big environment whenever I walk out. The walkout's very important to me.
Is it, I mean, for you guys, is it more your own mental buildup or do you guys put into, I know you're about the fans, right? Like, so it's like, I'm building a song that only matters to me because I got to get myself into the mindset, or is your mind somewhere else anyways, and the music is more to set the scene and continue to build the brand and like do it for the fans?
I think like when you visualize it, it's like almost like a third person thing. Like you imagine watching yourself walk out. So yeah, I think a little bit of that. Now I really don't care that much. I used to be like big on the walkouts. So sometimes I'll get into it and I'll think about it. But for me, like I've done like stuff like that where it's like hard, like doesn't work for me.
Mhm.
I have to have a smile on my face when I walk out for a fight. So and each person's different. Some people are like need that rah like stuff, and then some people it's like you gotta be happy. So, I think that kind of transfers to, different styles of fighting as well.
Justin Patton's was, we think we talked about that
Rooster?
too, the Rooster
Yeah,
song. That
he always
was,
walks out to that. So I love when people have like a one walkout song too, which is ironic because I don't.
yeah,
I love when people have their walkout song. Justin's is dope. I love Justin's.
dude, that buildup was fucking incredible.
Yeah, it was. It was a sad night too.
Yeah. Is
That
he
was sweet fucking
He's
thing.
good. He's good. He's supposed to be on my card February 1st. It's gonna be me and him.
awesome?
Yeah.
That's
Well, they're
exciting.
looking for opponents for each of us, but yeah, me and him.
Yeah, speaking of
Main
walkout
event.
songs that are always the same, Jon Jones, walkout songs, always the same.
Which one does he do again?
God give me style, God give me grace.
He did
What is the name of that song?
No, he does. The champ is here.
Well, it starts with that, right?
Oh, okay.
But then it goes to God give me style, God give me grace, God give me style, God give me grace. It's a 50 Cent song.
oh, okay.
Hmm.
He at one point he did Coming like the I'm coming home.
Oh
That one.
yeah, yeah, he did
I
do
don't remember
that
that
when
one.
I think it was when he took a layoff and then came back and fought.
It was OSP, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
Hmm.
Max is like a encyclopedia of MMA.
Okay.
I'm just a nerd, dude.
Yeah, Max is
I'm
just
just
Well,
a
that's
nerd.
good. Listen, I've been critical, right? I've been a little critical, but I wanted to give you your due time. I think
Yeah.
we wanted to get your insight, and I'm always willing to change my mind. I'm a firm believer that Jon Jones is the best to ever do it. And I want to go ahead.
so I 100% agree, and I just realized I think it's a generational thing. I think Max didn't watch Jon Jones come up,
A
and that's
thousand
why
percent.
he has this terrible perception.
Yes. And I want to ask you before we get into what I'm sure is going to be a disagreement, which I'm fine. Um, what is your definition of greatness? Like, what is the scale for you?
So it's strictly greatness, because you said the best of all time, and to me, there's a difference between the best of all time and the greatest of all time.
Okay, so
Because I think
we'll just go the greatest. So, okay, what is greatest of all time and best of all time mean to you?
I think greatest of all time is you have a lot of different, you have like two or three different things that go into it, right? You have in MMA, you have resume, you have like actual skill set, and you have like the dominance that they've had, right? So someone like Jose Aldo, right?
Hmm.
He might not have the same total resume, but he has like his dominance over so many years. And now part of that was because it was in like WEC and like earlier in
Hmm.
the UFC when not everyone was like he wasn't fighting like Lyoto Machida, Rampage all the time, right?
Sure.
But he had such a long hit like timeline of dominance, right?
Hmm.
I think that's one of the things that goes into the greatness aspect. Volkanovski is another one, where he got both resume skill set or all resume skill set, and he's got that dominance. He was dominant for a long period of time.
Hmm.
Um, that's what I think he goes into like the best of all time category as well, right? Because his skill set, I think if you look at him, he might not be the greatest featherweight of all time, but skill set wise, he's probably, if not number one, number two. I think the best of all time is a lot like more interesting conversation to have. Greatest of all time, you have other factors into it, legacy, resume, that type of thing.
Do you factor in out of the ring stuff for the greatest?
I do, I think.
I
And
think that's a big difference for how I view things.
What exactly out of the
yeah,
ring?
because there's when you're
So for
talking about
John, yeah.
John, like I don't think he's an awesome person, right? I think that there's a lot of stuff outside of the cage that points to that. I'm not a big fan of him as a human, right?
That's
But
fair.
that's ignoring all that
Mhm.
stuff. Outside the cage, you still have like a whole lot of PED stuff going on. And that to me is kind of, I don't know, I think that impacts your,
Define a whole lot of.
I mean, I don't know what the exact number is, but he's had issues with
What's it? What
PEDs
was it
since
called? It
early in his
was
career.
a
Picograms?
pico. I would call a picogram not a whole lot of. I would call it a very little
Well, that
amount.
was one
He had
instance.
that was the only steroid instance, I believe.
Hmm.
He had a picogram of ostarine,
He
which is
had
like
I don't remember which fight it was, but he had stuff pop up like earlier in his career too,
I
like
think it was
before he was
cocaine.
fighting for titles. No, 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 like PED stuff.
I don't know about
I
that.
don't know.
There's guys who what's his name? The
More plates,
more
more
plates, more
dates.
dates, the whole
Before,
breakdown. That
but
was on
before he was fighting for titles would have been like 2010. I don't
yeah.
think they were testing that diligently. And even if they were, I would have said like everybody would have been on something back then. Like if you're,
There's a
I
lot.
think, I think, I think pre 20, whenever you saw it came, I don't know when was that? Like
It
2014?
was 2014, yeah.
Yeah, I'm good. That was a guess. Um, so I would say pre-USADA, like nothing really should matter because everybody was on
Hmm.
something at some point or to some extent. And then I'd say after 2014, um, he only tested positive for ostarine, picogram of ostarine, which I believe he that's not what got erased for the DC one, was it?
Um, but that's what it wasn't the picogram. The picogram was the reason they had to, if I believe it was the reason they had to like entirely redo his rematch with Gustafsson because something popped up right after the DC rematch, and then so they overturned
So
that.
two things. Before 200, he tested positive for low doses of clomiphene.
Hmm.
And in 2000 and so then 2019, there was zero point 0.1 nanograms per milliliter of the metabolite for oral turinabol, which is it's something that comes up a lot, like ostarine in other supplements because it's an oral steroid.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
to me, it doesn't change my opinion. I
No,
don't.
it
I don't
doesn't change
think.
my
I
opinion.
don't think John. I think Jon Jones. And I heard this question once asked him. I think Jon Jones is a bad guy trying to do good.
I love that. I love that clip because I think everybody has that, like, two wolves thing, right? Bad wolf or good wolf or
Mm-hmm.
black wolf or white wolf or whatever. He said, "Am I a bad guy?" He said, "I don't know if I'm a good guy that does bad, from a bad guy that tries to be good." And I love that, like, just like that's such a cool thought,
Mm-hmm.
right? For like just a daily person. Like you're like, I don't know which one's better.
I like the idea. I like the idea. I think he was right. That clip where he's like, I think I'm a bad guy trying to do good. But then he like the whole clip he rewords it and he's like, well, because in a religious sense, right? And that's what he brings it back to because he's a religious guy, right?
Yeah, wouldn't in his sense, like, and I know we're getting a little off topic, but wouldn't all people be bad people trying to do good in his
Right. That's what
sense?
he
Is a
says.
point.
Yeah.
Um, I think regardless, none of this has an impact on him, like in his performances.
So say
I
for the sake of the goat conversation, whatever, don't even like include the drugs. Say
Sure.
okay,
like remove that then.
okay,
That's fine.
all right. So who's your goat? Who's your goat? Because you can't just have a rebuttal and then not give somebody, not throw
Yeah.
something out.
Who's been more dominant, better skills for a longer period of time?
I mean,
Anderson?
the three that you get like most commonly are George, Anderson, and John, right?
I would say George Anderson, John, and I would say people throw Habib in there because he was
Yeah.
undefeated. He retired undefeated.
And
Yeah,
I think Demetrius Johnson, to your point,
Five. Yeah, let's
is
give the other
actually
five. Let's go.
probably
Yeah.
up there from a dominance, skill, and longevity.
but
I
then the
think
resume, that's where it's like because he
right.
beat everyone that he could, but at
So I think
flyweight back then you can only beat so many
Yeah.
I
guys.
think Jon Jones is undeniably the best fighter MMA wise that has ever existed. I think we talked about this before, did an MMA combine, I think he would score the highest over every category over other people, right? I think his like baseline would be in the 90s for everything.
Who
How
has
would
a
you?
better resume than him?
And
Think
that
about
was,
I mean, we
yeah.
walked through the resume. Think about everybody that he beat from 2011 on.
But you also have to take into account the guys that he's beating at light heavyweight are very different than the guys that like the greats at light heavyweight are different than the greats at lightweight or featherweight. As you go up in those weight classes,
There's
you just
less
have less
there's less
skill
skill.
comparatively
There's
to.
less skill, but my argument that John never lost a fight fighting heavier people where there is a higher chance, a very, very high chance getting knocked out. If you get hit, right, there's such a small margin for error at the higher weight classes, and he had how many fights and never
Mhm.
got caught?
I think
That's insane.
inarguably defensively, he's like one of, if not the best defensive fighter ever. Like his defense is like people point at Khabib having never been dropped or like never been cut or anything like that. But John's like,
That's crazy that you say that he's the best defensive fighter because I don't necessarily agree with that, but I would agree he's the best offensive fighter.
how could he be the best offensive?
It's
Brandon Vera, TKO. Vladimir Metin, I don't know that guy, TKO.
Machichenko,
Yep.
Machichenko.
Ryan Bader, submission guillotine. Rua, TKO flying knee. Rampage Jackson, rear naked choke. Lyoto Machida, guillotine. Rashad Evans, decision. Beat the fuck out of Rashad. Vitor Belfort, submission. Helock.
Rashad, Vitor, Leota,
Chael
and
Sonnen.
Rampage were all in their primes.
Yeah.
Chael Sonnen's like he kind of got a freebie there. DC best heavyweight or one of the best heavyweights ever, and was in his prime twice. Gustafson beat him both times. Gustafson's prime.
Anthony Smith,
Anthony Smith, that was probably the best Anthony Smith that ever fought. And it was,
See, right there, then we start to like go, his performances start to decline a bit. And there's arguments as to why. But once you get to Anthony Smith, like and
Yeah.
you're not finishing Anthony Smith. You're going to a split decision with a one-legged Thiago Santos. I think he lost to Dominic Reyes. Like now this is why I think a lot of people, like when you say it more generationally, more my generation, because
yeah,
this
that's
is
when
all
you
we got
started
to see
watching.
live.
Yeah,
Then
that's
you
fair.
have, and I'm
Yeah.
not, I think that still stand by my arguments about him, but I think that you have what you said. You do have a lot of people younger who only started watching whenever he
Yeah.
fought Anthony Smith, he fought Thiago Santos, and these are like his worst
Now
performances.
contrast that with Anderson Silva, right? Anderson had like a similar run
Mhm.
with like just knocking some top talent guys off. But then when Anderson got to that point in his career, Anderson actually started to lose.
So yeah, so Anderson did start to lose, and I would be like, for what he is to Jon Jones, I would be to Anderson Silva. Where I started to watch Anderson Silva like right around the time he was like top dog,
Mhm.
and then I remember when he got knocked out by Chris Weidman,
Yeah.
and then it just went downhill from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember like Anderson against Chris Leben, like into the UFC Anderson, when he
Yeah.
just didn't look like he could be touched.
You saw that. You see
Oh,
that
fuck
live?
yeah. Yeah. And I remember watching Jon Jones fight Matt Hamill. I remember watching Jon Jones win a fight I'm trying to think who he fought before he fought Shogun, but they told him in the cage, they're like, you're going to get the next shot to go defend the title against Shogun because somebody got hurt. I think Rashad got hurt.
His performance against Shogun is one of my favorite, just as like a nerd who likes to break this stuff down. It's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. If you look at the finishing sequence against Shogun, no one like talks about this, but if you look at the finishing sequence against Shogun, after he hits him with that knee to the head and he throws like a left hook to the body and Shogun goes down and they're already pulling John off and you see Shogun tap, like tapping to strikes. And I'm like, that's insane that you have the champion. Like no one talks about that because the fight was already over, but you have the champion right there, like who's been just battered so horribly that he's like, you know what? I think I'm good.
Yeah.
That's crazy. A champion like Shogun, that's pretty impressive.
John also did all of these things from age 20 to age, what is he, 36, 38?
37.
Yeah.
Age 37, he's still not lost a fight. That's wild. You're 20 right now,
Yeah.
right? Max, I believe in you. I don't think you're a UFC champ right now. All right?
No.
Right? He's 20 years old. I'm just a kid, right? And for 17 years did not lose a fight. That alone that's the end of the conversation. Like he fought the best guys in the world and he was always the champ from age 20. I think he won at 23, right? He's been the champ for that long. So I just like he never fought anybody that wasn't in contention. Like he wasn't getting like layups ever. He never had a layup.
Yep.
Chael's the only one that kind of
yeah.
snuck in there, but Chael like marketed himself well, and I believe something
He beat
fell
him in the
through.
first round.
Something fell through for him to fight Chael. Actually,
Chael's, yeah.
you know, it's crazy. We could have a super controversial thing about Jon Jones and Chael because Jon Jones's toe almost got. If that fight would have made it to the second round, he probably would have took another no contest because his toe was like hanging.
And then you have the Anthony Smith thing. Like Anthony Smith could have, and he didn't just need Anthony Smith in the head illegally. Anthony Smith could have just been like, you know what? I think I'm good. I don't really want to keep doing
Anthony
this anymore.
Smith is a gangster though.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Oh, I think
he's
he
like
gets a lot
so
of shit.
tough. Yeah.
Even like beating up a guy in his house. I feel like he gets
Yeah, I remember
criticized
when
more
that
for that than not because people are like, how did you fight for 10, 15 minutes for your life against a guy who broke into your house? And obviously, like,
But that's such a
meth is
different
meth is a crazy thing.
Yeah, it really is. Also, Anthony Smith should just like get maybe a weapon or something. But you know,
That's such a
Save your
different
hands.
environment, though. You know?
It is.
but
No.
so have we already concluded that Max is wrong?
I mean,
Yeah.
I think so. And take it to the next step, right? Like, I don't think we said this before. I don't think it's a conversation. I kind of almost feel bad for John, who, by the way, you know, he was engaging in the video that we talked about this. So
Yeah,
like,
that's
he's actually seen
why I
it.
So
gotta keep my
John
mouth shut a little bit more.
actually hates Max too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
You haven't.
He's trying
So
to get me
not
killed,
only
dude.
that, like you have beef with the greatest fighter of all time, bro.
Thank you for name dropping.
You should
my
call him
full
out.
First and last name. And
You
that
should
video.
call
It was
him out.
great.
But I think it's disrespectful to him to even question whether or not he's the best to ever do it. I think there's an argument, and I still fall on the Jon Jones side, and I think we're going to get to see him fight Tom Aspinall. I think it's going to happen. And I think a lot of what John's been saying and how he's been positioning it is a negotiation. I think it's kind of, to me, also disrespectful to insinuate that he's afraid to fight Tom Aspinall.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, where does that rank? If he beats Tom Aspinall, does he pass your checklist? Does he pass the max?
Already where he's at right now, so you're right. When we started this off, I'm like, you can't come to like the discussion, like you can't come to the debate without having like an alternative, right? In my mind, I'm like, I don't really know if I have like my goat. Like if someone asks me, I'm like, this is my goat, right? I don't really have one of those because I prefer the best of all time conversation, right? I prefer the guys who I'm like, that guy is skill for skill.
Who do you think
is the
skill
best.
for skill better than Jon Jones?
I mean,
Across all categories. So here's the thing about
Right.
Jon Jones, right? Like you said, you think he's the best defensive fighter of all time, which I think is crazy because I think he's the best offensive fighter of all time. Why do I think he's the best offensive fighter of all time? I think he can hit you with all 8 of his limbs at any given time in both stances. Not only that, he has a division 1 level, right? He was a JUCO national champion wrestler,
He
Greco
out-wrestled
background.
DC.
Out wrestled DC. He out wrestled Rashad Evans, 2 Division 1 wrestlers. DC NCAA national runner up to Cale Sanderson, the greatest of all time consensus. And he also just gets on top and is dominant. I've never seen Jon Jones on his back. I don't know if he's been taken down, but if he was, he got up pretty fast.
38 out of 40.
Yeah. So I don't think there's no doubt in my mind he's the best offensive fighter of all time because he can beat you on his feet and on top, right? And you already said he's the best defensive fighter of all time. So if we're like looking at things, there's 2 categories. It's offense and defense. And we both agree that he's the best of all time in both.
yeah, but who's he doing it against?
I just read the list.
Rashad
No,
Evans.
like that's good. How does Rashad compare to like somewhat like an Islam, right? Like both were champions, but pound for pound, who's better, Islam or Rashad?
I mean, then you're going like generation that gets confusing. But Rashad was a Division 1 wrestler, right? What's Islam known for? And Rashad, I mean, if we don't have to read Rashad's resume leading up to Jon Jones, do we? I mean,
No, Rashad was still like great.
yeah, Rashad was great. 100% great. Do you think Islam Makhachev is the greatest fighter of all time? Is that your argument?
No, I don't think he's the greatest of all time because he doesn't have the full resume. He doesn't have
He has potential. He has
dominance,
potential to be.
Totally does. Yeah.
I totally think he has potential to be because I
How old
think
is he? He's only like
his
30
striking's good too.
Yeah.
But
Like I think Islam is better than Khabib.
I agree.
Skill-wise,
I think
he's better
Islam's
than Khabib.
More
better than
well-rounded.
Right.
I also think that Islam will get beat within the next 5 years.
I think he could get beat, but I also think Islam has the capability to come back from that.
I agree 100%. You know who didn't get beat for 17 years? Jon Jones.
Right.
He didn't slip on one banana peel for
You talked
an
about
entire career.
So you don't think he lost to Dominic Reyes?
No.
I went back and
Actually,
watched
2 out of 3 judges would agree with me as well.
I think all of them agree with you. I don't even think it was split.
Dominic Reyes?
Yeah, was it split?
I think it was
I
unanimous.
think it was unanimous.
Wild. Well, I
was,
unanimously think that as well.
Yeah, unanimous.
I thought he beat
Yeah.
Dominic Reyes. The only fight
Split decision with
went,
Banta.
that's the one that when it went to the thing, when it went to this like in the scorecards, I was a little worried, but 2 out of 3 judges
So
saw he won.
I think you might be you might be right with the offensive thing being a generational part because that's where like going back and watching John's fights, I'm like, oh, I can appreciate how great what he's doing here is.
Yeah.
But offensively, like I've never seen the first time I saw John finish someone was when he fought Gone.
And so that fight and then Stipe, and I know where it's going to go with Stipe, like, oh, he's old and he's washed up, but
Yeah,
I don't take as much of that when you get to heavyweight. I don't think that we saw the best Stipe, but I also think there's an argument that Stipe looked the way that he did because he was fighting the best offensive fighter to ever fight. I mean,
Stipe had 5 years to prepare for Jon Jones. I don't care how old he is.
Yeah.
He had 5 years to prepare for one fighter. So, and he knew he was fighting Jon Jones. I used to train at his gym all the time, and we would talk about Stipe fighting Jon Jones, and that was in 2020. So I think it's just really not close. I just don't understand the argument.
Well,
I
coming
don't
from
get it.
somebody that also trained to fight him, fight never ended up materializing, but I knew Rumble Johnson pretty well. We were business
Oh yeah.
partners. And I remember we were sitting on my balcony in Austin, Texas, smoking a doobie. R.I.P. Rumble. I miss that guy a lot. One of the coolest motherfuckers in the world, dude. Like that
Yeah.
guy was a freak of nature. And we talked about Jon Jones, and he was like, nobody even close, man. And I'm like, like, were you nervous about getting ready to fight? He's like, I'm not. He kind of like, I wasn't nervous. He reminds me of like, a little bit of Rampage. I wasn't nervous to fight anybody. He goes, I would have had to have been perfect, and he would have had to have like slipped up. He goes like, but I had that dynamite in one hand. But he told me like,
Why didn't that one happen? They faced off. I remember a video
yeah,
because they
where
were
they
like
shoved each
cool.
other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like fake shoved each other. What happened?
Somebody
Who pulled
got,
out?
I don't think that it was Rumble. I think something happened to John
Maybe he got
because
arrested.
then Rumble fought DC.
Maybe he got arrested. Also, I think if we're just grading on that on a different scale, Jon Jones getting in trouble throughout this many times in
And
his
still
career
keeping
and
it
still
together.
going out and doing the damn thing every single time, no matter what was going on in his life, is more impressive.
Yeah,
Right?
doesn't make you impressive as a human.
Yeah, I was
No,
gonna say,
But
I
it
mean,
makes
doesn't
you
make
impressive
you,
as a
yeah.
fighter.
that's like I will never say that there's not bias here because I do not like him at all. Right.
Dude, if you also he liked our last post, so whatever he says does not put me into it. That's Max Jerrell. You gonna call him out?
I
No,
think I'm good.
I think here's the thing. If you were like, all right, there's an R-rated documentary based movie coming out about Jon Jones or GSP, I'm going to the Jon Jones one.
If
I
it's R
don't
rated, I'm
care.
going to the John.
I
I
don't
want to see that
care.
way more.
His
I don't think
is
GSP
way
has done an
better.
R rated
His
thing in his life.
story's way better. He's a better fighter, and he never lost
If we're making an
ever.
R rated documentary, yeah, I'm gonna go see the Jon Jones one because I know there's gonna be a lot of R rated shit in
so
that
I
movie.
got a
We're
different
making a
angle.
movie.
If
Jon
you
Jones.
have a Michael Jordan jersey or a LeBron James jersey and you can buy one or the other, you're buying the LeBron James jersey, right?
Dude, I'm the only one in my family that has no idea
I'm a
anything about
homer. I'm
basketball.
a
Yeah, well,
homer
that
for
makes sense.
basketball. I'm picking the LeBron James
That
jersey,
makes
but
sense.
I'm from Ohio, so
You got,
I have
I
to.
can understand why you would do that, but to me, it's the same argument. It's like LeBron James or Michael Jordan. It's like, get out of here with this
I
fucking
think
shit.
maybe if we're talking about like, I think it might be different if it's like football right now, right? If I'm like, I think Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time, and the TikTok generation's like it's Patrick Mahomes.
I don't think
Are
you
you
pointed at me
kidding?
when you said
The
that.
TikTok generation is like it's Patrick Mahomes. You know what I mean? So I think
That seems like a
that's
little exaggerated comparing Patrick Mahomes and Brady to what GSP and
Yeah, I think actually
John.
Patrick Mahomes and Brady are closer than John and anybody else that fights. But
100%. I would agree. Jon Jones is just like I think he might be the only consensus greatest player in any sport. Like I just don't
I
see.
don't even know anything about hockey, but isn't Wayne Gretzky like the consensus
Okay, Jon
greatest?
Jones and Wayne Gretzky are on a different tier above everybody.
I don't know how many times did Wayne Gretzky get caught cheating.
on his wife,
No,
I
I
don't
didn't
know.
even mean
I don't know
that.
Wayne, so I just probably shouldn't have said that. But
Wayne seems like a nice guy. I don't know, but also like back then, like there wasn't as much ways to get in trouble. I mean,
yeah,
like that like when you talk about goat conversation, that's something that I don't know, man. I think that it's pretty. I think we
Look,
came to the right
I think if we're
conclusion.
going by like the tiers that we were talking that I look at when I think about GOAT, right? You have resume, skill, dominance, and all that. No one like you objectively, no one competes with John, right?
Okay, and then
It's
we can
the other
clip
things
that,
that I'm like, yeah,
and then we can clip that. So I won. I won the argument. That was so easy,
I know.
but it's like it's.
take my check now. Thank you.
How long was that? That 30 minutes to convince him?
30 minutes to convince.
Jeez.
All right. Well, let's move on. Max, this guy right here, has a fight coming up in December,
Mhm.
December 21st for 247.
Yeah,
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
dude. This is the first time. This is my fourth amateur MMA fight. I got a Thai fight as well, but fourth amateur MMA fight. This was the first time that I ever like saw like a name come across from like Mike and Will, and I was like, I just got like excited, right? I felt that like feeling inside, and I was like, oh, I have to do this. It was the first time I ever felt that. I'd seen like names before, and I'd gotten offers, and it was like, yeah, I just want to fight. So give me whatever, right? Um, but this was the first time where, because it was like 2 days after I just fought, I lost a decision. It was like 2 days after that, so I was already kind of like, I'm kind of in that funk still from having lost. And I saw the name, and I was like, oh, this is like an opportunity I have to take advantage of, right? It was the first time I ever got that. So having that kind of that motivation, that little bit of fire in there, I've never felt that. Um, I had to I had to jump on it. You guys, you know the opponent I'm talking about. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
if I'm
think we
allowed to
can say it
say.
because I think it'll be it'll be this
Yeah,
won't
that's
be out
true.
until it's
That's true.
released. So you're fighting Drew Landefeld, who
Hmm.
I believe's 3-3.
Yeah, and he's got a Muay Thai win too, so
Three
four
and
and three
three with
overall.
a Muay Thai fight. He's been fighting since before I was fighting.
Hmm.
Probably started in like 2018
Yeah.
would be my guess. Fought some tough guys. Also took a lot of for like he would fight anybody. He at
Mhm.
one point was supposed to have a Muay Thai fight against me, and I got hurt. Unfortunately, that fell through.
And
And then Tim Bailey
he was booked to fight Miguel at in a
booked to
professional
fight
fight.
Miguel in a
He was
pro
booked to go
fight.
pro, you know?
Kid just like down to fight anybody, scrappy dude. He's he trains out of mostly trained out of top tier. Now he's affiliated with Matt Factory and I believe what else?
Rival, yeah.
Rival MMA, I think is his main place. He's good, man. He's like a vet. So I
Hmm.
think that's what made you excited is like he's been around for a long
Was it the
time.
challenge, or was there something else that made you want to take this fight? So much different than
There
the
was,
last time.
yeah, there was a little bit of something else too. The way that it was put to me, I haven't asked any more in depth about this, but the way that it was put to me was they were like, yo, Drew Lanifield's been asking about you. And I was like, oh, really? Okay.
His
Um,
last fight was on the February card,
yeah,
right? That you fought on.
his last fight was actually back in February, the last time I fought for 247. And I think like two fights before him, I beat his teammate, Val Caruso, right?
That'd be why. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because there's so much. The challenge was definitely enticing, but there's so much. I said to Lucas the other day, there's so much like synchronicity around the way that this came to be. There's so many little things that have happened over the past couple of years where I've been like within 1 degree of separation from Drew, and I've always seen it, or I've seen the venue, and I've thought about just little things here and there where I'm like, oh, this is like all of it coming full circle, and I finally get to fight him here. But one of them was like, if you watched my fight with Val back in February, as he's like walking out to get in the cage, Landafield has his hands wrapped and he comes out and like gives Val a high five and a hug and everything, and sends him into the cage. And then I walked out right behind him and just seeing that kind of the foretelling of like the passing of the torch. You have him saying, good luck to Val. I beat up Val and now I get to fight him, right?
Hmm.
And I told Lucas I remember last year was the same night that you fought for the AMI title for 247, right? Um,
July 23.
yeah, July 2023. I was there. I was right after I'd fought Muay Thai. I had my first ever fight. And like 2 months later, I was there in Monroeville Convention Center when Lucas was fighting for the title. And on the undercard of that fight was Landafield versus Logan Fink, I think it
Yep.
was, right?
Yep.
And Landafield fought Logan Fink that night. And I remember standing, like leaning up against the wall, looking, because I didn't even have like table seats. I was just standing there looking into the cage. And I remember watching Landafield do that fight and thinking, like, man, one of these days I really want to fight. I thought I was going to fight for one of the titles at the Monroeville Convention Center, which I still hope I can do eventually. But I remember sitting there watching it and being like, man, one of these days I'm going to fight in this arena here. And having seen Landafield fight that night, and now I'm fighting in the Monroeville Convention Center against
Hmm.
Landafield and advanced AMI. So we're going to be a little bit higher up on the card. We're going to have that crowd. Both of us are good names for 247. We're both
Hmm.
going to sell tickets. We're both going to bring in a crowd. And knowing that, and then seeing that it was his name and just like feeling all of this stuff coming together, I was like, oh man, this is exactly what I want right now, you know?
Hmm.
Part of it was the challenge, but there was also a lot of other things where I was like, this all just lines up perfectly.
Do you do you take any stock into making things personal? Like I think that was something that came from the Jon Jones and Stipe fight. Like there was the weigh-in where he's like, "Don't ever talk about my kids
Yeah.
again." Stipe was kind of like, I don't know if he really didn't. Maybe he didn't say anything because I've never seen the clip, but some people seem to thrive out of making shit personal, right? And even in those scenarios, people always shake hands. There's a mutual level of respect.
Mhm.
But I mean, at the end of the day, you're going out there to fight somebody, right? And I believe that it could go both ways, right? It could get you into a headspace that's not actually advantageous for you to execute on a game plan. But I do think that if you go into something like, oh, that's my friend, or like, I got nothing against them, I've seen that song and dance play out in the negative for the person that doesn't really have a chip or something personal to go in there and fight somebody, right? Like
Yeah.
you got to have a little bit of like animosity,
I
I think.
think me, for somebody like my amateur career was, and the beginning of my pro career was a lot of like animosity, right? The fight you were talking about, the kid was like specifically asking to fight me and hadn't fought in a long time for the title. And then my pro debut had animosity too. And I think one thing it does is it increases the level of danger. I actually talked to Mike about this, and he was like, man, I was always kind of scared to like let anything cross a line. Like he was like friendly with his opponents. And he said if he went on back in his career, he wouldn't have cared as much about that because you have to fight. You have to like fight better, kind of. Like there's like it when you like have beef with somebody, you kind of have to let your nuts hang. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Like, because if you lose, you gotta swallow your words as well as take the L,
Mhm.
right? So what that usually does for me is it just increases my focus, right? And
Gives you something else probably to
it
train for
increases
too.
not even the training. It's like there's a level of danger in here while I'm fighting for that amount of time where it's like I have to be focused, right? Because this dude's throwing to kill me. Um, so I think there's a little bit of that, and I also think Max is a big like big on like telling a story, kind of, right? I think he and I'm very similar. Um, like looks at his career and like telling a story because it's his own story, right? And he's writing it, right? So like Max is the only one that knows who's sitting on that wall in Monroeville in July of 2023. But that's something that if he was writing a book, he would put in there,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think that's something that's my biggest takeaway from Max and where me and him, where I draw a lot of similarities with him is like the manifestation and the storytelling that comes with the fighting in his
Yeah.
career.
Yeah, I think I do tend to try and find a personal angle, but not in like an animosity way where I'm like, hey, fuck you, like as a person, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like that. I try to find the person like what makes it personal to me, um, from like an overview of life type thing.
Yeah.
Like when I fought Val Caruso, I remember thinking, right before Val and I fought, he fought our teammate in Muay Thai, Rico. And he fought Rico in the main event of the Stout fights. And I remember seeing Val's name, and immediately I started thinking back to being backstage watching Val fight in the main event. And I was like, this is a guy who's just coming off of a fight in the main event of one of our shows, and now I'm fighting him. And I kind of used that as like a boost up a little bit, where I'm like, this
Mm-hmm.
guy's coming out of a main event to fight me. And that's where I kind of looked and made it a little bit not personal like an animosity type thing, but personal in the sense of this is all kind of like this, not to be like a narcissist, but I'm like, this all kind of puts me above the rest of these people. Like the fact that I'm fighting him coming off this main event, I'm like, this makes me special, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's
And
how you
it's,
have to look at it though. Like you
yeah,
have to write it that way.
I
I
agree. I
think a
just,
lot of people are scared to let their nuts hang. And regional MMA and amateur MMA and whatever, right? They're scared to like talk their shit. And then they go out there and because they were scared to talk their shit, they have lackluster performances because like in reality you just like don't have the confidence if you don't have the confidence enough and there's like a disrespectful angle to it, right? There's like a line, right? If you don't have the confidence enough to say like who you are, then you don't have the confidence enough to throw an
Well, I
extra
think that
punch.
line is where it becomes detrimental, right?
Yeah.
Conor McGregor, perfect example. Conor had this whole thing mastered. He was confident in who he was. I'm going to beat your ass. I'm going to do it in this time. It was a little bit personal with everybody, but it was more, I think he was looking at it in your way, like creating a story. It was
yeah,
the story.
yeah,
Then when it got to Khabib, it got out of control and it turned into this more
yeah. For me, it
like
was less of a
disrespectful
story and more
thing.
of just like an
And then I feel
animosity.
like, you could argue it's just because Khabib is a better fighter, right? And so Khabib beat him. But there's something to be said for like Connor sitting there on that fence, just kind of like, fuck, like I said some things that I probably didn't mean, but I was doing it. But this dude took it fucking serious and came in here and like wanted to literally kill. I mean, to your point,
There's that level of
wanted to
danger.
kill
Yeah,
him.
there's a level of danger. Then you don't cross that line, and that line is different for every person. It's like whatever you're willing to say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I also think like a lot of like Max's confidence, or even I refer back to my amateur career, confidence is just like it's not really shit talking. It's basically talking yourself up, and a lot of people hate when you are confident in yourself. I don't know what it is in people just generally like in MMA scene, wherever people just do not like a young kid that's confident. It's there's something about it. Um, and people will hate on you and like doubt your skills and do that until you prove them wrong. And like I said, I had my moment where I proved people wrong in Pittsburgh, and it was that day. It was July 15th, 2023. And I think this is a good chance for Max to go out and like prove that like skill for skill, he's the best fighter,
Yeah.
amateur in Pittsburgh.
There's angles to it though, because I'm guilty of looking at people and being a little cringe when they're confident in a way that's also like I like how you're confident. You're confident in a way that is kind of like arrogant, but also like look, like you're kind of like laid back with it by being confident. Contrast that with someone like Michael Chandler. I should have no reason to not like Michael Chandler. I'm sorry. I just want him to shut up. Just shut up with the I'll see you at the top.
Yeah.
Like he's trying to be like
it's like organic and it's
it's very scripted and fake kind of, whereas opposed to like how you portray it, it's very like I'm confident. I don't fucking care if you like it or not. I am as good as I say that I am. And you can create people who want to come after you and want to challenge you and call you out and be like, because they know that beating you propels them. And there's probably some people that maybe are rubbed the wrong way a little bit about it. Like when we talked about Cowboy Eddie and you were just kind of like, oh, there's something about him.
Yeah.
But then I mean, it's like,
yeah.
I can't not like this guy.
Yeah. Because there's like, I don't know what it is. Like, I would like to see the psychology of it, but when you see somebody have confidence, like a real pure confidence, like how Eddie had when he debuted, like how Max had when he Amy debuted, like what I had when I Amy debuted, you just automatically are like, fuck that guy. If you don't know them, right? If you have a personal tie to them, it's completely different. But if you just don't know them and you watch them, like you automatically have this, like most humans have it, right? I've been victim of it. But I've also like I've been in hit like cowboy shoes in that stand like instance. So I was like, I can't hate on him. Like I remember catching myself. Like
He's being authentic.
I had that thought and then I like drew it back and I was like, I was like, who would I be if I was to hate on him when and then you meet him and you're like, oh, he's a cool dude. You know what I mean? So and it's fighting. My favorite like way to be is just to have my heart on my sleeve, right? And that's how I am every day, right? I'll walk in a room, like, oh fuck, Lucas is having a bad day. Or you can be like, wow, Lucas seems really happy today. He's cracking a lot of jokes, whatever, right? I'm the same way when I fight, right? I'm gonna wear my heart on my sleeve. That's just who I am. That's who he is too. And I think that's something really cool. I remember watching his amateur debut so well. I can tell you exactly where I was at the casino. And his performance in his amateur debut, to this day, I've never seen a better performance in an amateur probably fight, especially an amateur debut, especially from a kid that didn't have any like wrestling background. I don't know
What
if
is
you
your
played
background?
any high school sports.
Not much. I mean, I didn't have wrestling in high school at all. I really like all of my combat sports experience came from starting jujitsu, like what freshman or sophomore year of high school. Like I didn't wrestle in high school at all, which is like one of my biggest regrets. I always wish I did. But I never found like I wanted to play football for a little bit. I did swimming for a while, track, cross country, that type of thing. But I didn't have any real combat sports or more importantly, any like one-on-one competition experience until I started training. That was just never something that I did.
That's what this kid went out October. I don't even know what it would have been, the 21st
First, yeah.
of October and 23. And he just, I don't even like, it was insane. He went on and just had like the most flow state performance, confidence. He's talking shit mid-fight. He's hitting double legs that he's never hit in his
Yeah.
life. He's just between the first and second round, Mike and Will, was it the first, second, or the second and third?
It was the first and second.
First and
Yeah.
second, Mike and Will denied him water
Yeah.
because
I asked for it.
yeah,
Yeah.
his coach, yeah, Mike and Will were like, nah. His coach Jonas, the main dude in Zealy, that happened. They said no to him getting water in between one of his
Yeah.
fights. So they were like, no, we're not giving you water. And I mean, it's 2
He said to me
minutes.
in between rounds, I'm like, yo, can I get some water? And they're like, no, we're doing a joke right now. We'll explain it later. In like the middle of the fight. And I was just like, okay.
It's a
Fine.
joke. It's a joke. They're not mic'd up. Also,
No.
it's just like an inside joke. They're like, this would be fun.
They literally said to me, he's like, no, we're doing a joke. Mike's like, no, we're doing a joke right now. We'll explain later. And I'm like, all right, dude, I'm gonna go fight for another 2 minutes, but you do your joke, bro.
Yeah,
Thank
you're like,
you.
this is the most important moment of my life, but you
Yeah.
have fun with your joke.
I'm like, I hope you guys are having a good time.
But you were winning by like they wouldn't have done that if it was a close fight. Like the
Right.
skill gap was like, and that was the closest round. And then Max just like abused this kid. And he fought somebody who was like his age too, which was
Yeah,
kind
we were
of cool.
both 18. Or
Yeah.
I would have been 19. He would have been 18.
Yeah. So yeah, Max just beat this dude up and then turned around and fought February on my pro debut card.
Mhm.
Fought Val Caruso.
Right.
And that was also like a super incredible performance.
It was, but it wasn't I felt like if my amateur debut was like 85% of my potential, then when I fought in February, it was like 65. Like I was not proud of that performance, even though I felt like I won pretty well.
Where does, without having competitive one-on-one combat experience, didn't wrestle, getting punched in the face is not something that's for everybody.
Yeah.
Like how do you get to a place where I'm not gonna mind getting cracked in the face, breaking my nose, busting up my eyes. Like even with jujitsu, I mean, I train all the time. There's a lot of guys that I train with that, you bump them and they're still a little
Yeah.
like soft about shit, right? And that's relative because to be out on the mats, they're clearly not soft. I give anybody that's up there training, but there's levels to that. Like you didn't have that to draw back on. Like
Mhm.
as a collegiate wrestler, I'm sure you
Yeah.
broke your nose plenty of
I'm
times shooting for a double or something.
I'm also
right?
curious on your answer on this
Yeah.
because I don't understand where he got it from. Like he's especially one is competitive nature, and then two is just like he's a dog.
Mhm.
Like he'll throw down with anybody.
Right.
I don't get it.
Yeah, that was
Were
like
you bullied as a kid? Were you fat? You were fat, weren't
kind
you?
of. Yeah, a little.
He's fat.
I tell people I was,
got
and then
it.
they're like, "No, you weren't fat." But I was like 5'6" in high school and like 185, So I was like chubby, right?
Mhm.
But my thing was always like in all through like elementary, middle school, high school, I was like a shorter kid, right? That was part of it. I got picked on a little bit for being short, but it was like, who didn't? Like, if you're short, that was just part of the package, right? But my thing was I always wanted people to see how tough I was. And I always wanted to show that off. It was never like I wanted to get into fighting or I wanted to, even in high school, like when I would like go out, like seek fights with people, it was never because I wanted to just beat someone up. It was always because I wanted to show people around how tough I was and how I could be like, before I started training, I always told people, I'm like, it doesn't matter how many times you punch me or kick me or whatever. I'm going to lose the fight, but I'm going to keep coming forward the entire time. And that was always like when you talking about wearing your heart on your sleeve, right?
Mhm.
That was always my thing was before I knew how to throw a kick, before I knew how to throw a punch, before I knew how to do anything technical, I went into it with the mindset of no matter what you hit me with, I will keep going forward until you put me flat on my face. And that's something I've maintained to this day. And that's something I know I will always be able to hold on to. That was what it was. I didn't have any like competitive experience with one-on-one, but growing up, I always felt disrespected by people because I wasn't the biggest. I wasn't tall. I wasn't like in great shape. I wasn't anything special, but I always felt disrespected
Yeah,
by other
but no,
people.
I don't, I'm going to challenge you on this a little bit because I appreciate that answer. But I know a lot of people that had this, like they were disrespected. But if I was to walk up and punch them, all of that goes out the window because they don't want to get punched. Like I'm shocked that you're not like I had three older brothers that used to beat the piss out of me and this.
I am the
So
oldest.
you were the bully.
I
Yeah, but
mean,
he's also the black sheep of his family.
yeah, like I was a bully, but not like physically really. Like me and my brothers would get into fights, but I never. I was just like I was just a dick. Like I wasn't physically like abusive all the
Mm,
time with them. My middle brother might say I was, but I wasn't like a huge like fight starter with them. I was just like an asshole because I felt so I was like introverted in a negative way. I
mm.
just felt like my only defense was to be rude and sarcastic and stuff until I was like later in my teens and 20s. Um, I always wanted to get like what you were talking about. I felt disadvantaged because I didn't go through enough hardship growing up in my mind. I was like, I came from a good home. I came from a fine area. I knew all these people and my friends who had struggles and different problems going on. And I was like, why don't I have any of that? I felt kind of like gifted. I was like, why don't I have these struggles? Why don't I have these issues? And so I was like, yeah, punch me in the face. Let's see what happens. You know, I wanted to show that I could take that beating and keep
I
going.
think there's something genetically, like just with people, right?
Yeah.
Because do you remember the first time you ever got hit?
Um,
Because
like
you either get hit and never want to get hit again, or you get hit and because I don't think that's one thing people, especially now with so many casual fans of mixed martial arts and combat sports in general, it's so easy to criticize people like, oh, I would do this, I would do that, or it's but 95% of them, if they got punched by anybody in the face, would be like, whoa, like stop, like I just got
Yeah.
hit in the
yeah,
face. I mean, how many times even in a fight with Eddie, how many times do you think you got hit in the face?
But the last
Yeah.
pretty good amount.
Right? I mean, it's getting hit in the
Roll
face,
with them.
right?
Yeah.
With by somebody that knows how to hit somebody in the face,
mhm.
Yeah.
right? Like you can't not want to get hit.
Yeah.
You gotta, there's just something I feel like that you can't teach somebody. You have guys that are great athletes and then like they translate into MMA. Who was the football player? The big dude that beat up his girlfriend.
Greg Hardy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody like that didn't want to get hit in the face.
But
Didn't want to get
he
hit.
wanted to be the
Wanted to beat
hammer.
up
He
everybody.
couldn't be
Wanted to
the
be the
nail,
hammer,
but
but
he
he
wanted
could
to
not
be
be
the
the nail,
yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
there's a lot of those examples. And then you have other guys that really aren't that great at being the hammer, but they're fucking
Yeah.
awesome at being the nail. And it's like it's to me, it's like that's a thing,
Yeah,
man.
I
That's
think
something I'd like still do take pride in that. I'm like, you say whatever you want about me, but I'll be the nail for 8 minutes out of a 9 minute fight if I have to, you
Mm.
know? I'm going to hit you at some point. I'm going to come forward. And the first ever fight that I had wasn't my like first ever like sanctioned fight, right? It wasn't that MMA debut, it was my Muay Thai fight. And the whole fight, like I fought like a complete moron. It was not at all the way I trained. It was I just went in there angry and it was really bad. But the entire fight, I was like I got knocked down with a head kick at one point. He was hitting me with like a spinning elbow. And the whole fight, I was just running forward at him like, keep going, dude, you know? Um, that mentality is like that's what I've always had in my back pocket. I'm like, you know, if I get outskilled, if I get outpointed, whatever it is, I know that I can keep going forward and be like, you're gonna have to finish this right now, or I'm not gonna stop coming at you. And a lot of people just don't have that. And that's something I figured out after getting into fighting. Like I knew that I was like tougher than a lot of the people I knew, you know, as a kid, and I could like show that because I would like go to high school parties just hoping a fight broke out. That was like the only reason I would
Yeah,
go.
so there's something crossed inside your brain
Yeah, but I
in a
can't. You
good
can't.
way.
You
Like
can't.
I'm
I
not saying
can't
that
say
it's
to
a
people.
negative, but like
I can't look at people and be like, I want to get punched in the face because they're like, no, you don't. Shut up. And I would think that too. I'm like, that's cringy. Don't say that. But at the same time, I'm like, I kind of want. I've always been disappointed that I never left any of my fights with like my face being busted up. Like when I fought that kid in October, I had him bleeding out of the mouth, and I'm like, I've never got to do that. When
Dude.
is someone gonna
Yeah.
let me do that? You know?
Mhm.
There might be something a little crossed in there too, but I've always that's been something I've had in my back pocket, like a secret weapon, where I'm like, I'll keep going until we're done here. And a lot of fighters, people who fight, don't have that. You know,
Yeah.
they want to keep themselves safe and they want to win until it means putting themselves in danger.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
that's
I
a
think
detriment
there's
sometimes.
like certain people that have it too that you don't see. Like I know Max has it. He hasn't. I don't even know if you've had to show it in any of your fights. Um, maybe the one I didn't see the Muay Thai fight, but like I know
Mhm.
you have it because I see it every fucking Tuesday, where he'll get the shit kicked out of him and just keep coming. And I'm like, God damn, bro.
Yeah.
All right, I'll keep doing it. But
Yeah.
and he just like I mean he's in a room full of dudes that and I think this is a testament to your character and who you are as a man. It's like he's in a room full of killers, right? He's been in that room for 2 years and now he's like one of the best, right? You either rise to the top or you get pushed out, and he chose to rise to the top. Like I know this isn't something that I know happened, but pretty damn sure I probably hit Max with some combo or some takedown, and then he probably went to Zealy that week and was like, "Hey Jonas, what the fuck do I do to defend this? Because Lucas fucking did it to me on Tuesday, or Luke Martin
Hmm.
did it to me on Tuesday, right?" And then he'd come and it wouldn't work, and he'd be like, "What the fuck?" And then he'd do it again. Like that's just who he is. And there's certain people where like that's how he's gonna get to the top because he's intelligent and he's crazy. You have to have like intelligence behind your like if you're just a crazy person where it's like I don't care, I'll go get punched in the face,
Yeah.
right? Like he was talking
Yeah.
about his MMA debut or his Muay Thai debut. Like there's no success, right? But if you have intelligence behind it and it's thought out, like that's where you're gonna have success behind it, and then you are always willing to bite down on your mouthpiece and throw an extra punch or
Yeah.
shoot for a takedown, which he has. Have you seen him fight?
I've seen a bunch of clips.
Yeah.
So when we traded some notes like shit, like months back.
Yeah.
And
I
because I
haven't.
would see you up at Zealy all the
Yeah.
time. And like Jonas, I can't say enough good things about that guy. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously
Me
he means a
neither.
lot to you and is a big part of your training. I mean,
Mhm.
we talk about my boy all the time. I mean, Jonas, my kids pretend to be Coach Jonas.
Yeah.
Like one's like, I'm Coach Alex, I'm Coach Jonas, and they fucking wrestle and fight each other and punch each other. So it's funny. But I started to see you and could tell, I'm like, okay, this kid, you were an anomaly to me because your presence doesn't come across like a fighter.
Hmm.
And to your point, like you're intelligent. And I'm like, shit. And then I remember seeing like it was a Stout Fights Instagram post. And it was like the team went, 3-1. And it was like a clip of you. I'm like, oh shit, there's that kid.
Yeah.
And I went and like watched a couple of things like clips. I'm like, oh fuck, like he's tenacious. That was the first word that came to me is like tenacious, which kind of
Yeah.
goes to my question, like, where does that come from? Because it doesn't,
Yeah.
you don't come across like somebody like that. You remind me a little bit more of like a Stephen Thompson.
Yeah. I could see
Like
that.
you're a nice guy.
But I've always been I can say always now because after through the three MMA fights I've had, I don't really count the Muay Thai one as much because I've just approached it poorly. But through the MMA fights I've had, that's something I take a lot of confidence in now is right before the fight, I have so much confidence in my mentality. I tell people all the time, like the hours, if I'm fighting at like 7, right? Like 3, 4, 5, I'm at the hotel, I'm chilling, whatever it is. I'm like, that's where I'm the most nervous, right? Those people like talk about dealing with the nerves and stuff.
Hmm.
The nerves are the worst for me in like that middle area of the day where it's like 3, 4, 5, and I'm chilling at the hotel, I'm at my house, whatever it is, and I'm just like all those nerves are going through me. But as I get closer and closer and closer to the fight, and to the point where I'm like in the back, ready to walk out, and I'm like behind the curtains, there's zero nerves anymore. And it's all just like, it's like a green light. Where the Wonder Boy Thompson is like, he's even nice in the cage. He's helping guys up and then knocking them back down. As
Yeah,
soon
I
as
know what
I,
you're saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
as soon as I walk out, I feel it's like a green light and it's like full permission. I have a hard time sparring sometimes because especially with newer people because I'm like I so don't want to hurt you. I don't want to be vicious here. I don't want to be the guy that's going too hard or doing unnecessary damage. So as soon as I get to fight and as soon as my walkout song hits, and that's like something I visualize hundreds of times in camp.
It's like you got a hall pass.
It's exactly.
Yeah.
It's a green light. It's a free
I
slip. It's
can,
like go do as much damage as you possibly can. And
yeah.
that's where that viciousness comes out when I start yelling at the kid in October. I'm talking to Val in the cage. Like that's where that kind of comes out of me because I have 6, now it's 9 minutes where I'm allowed to do whatever I want to you and I can tell you about it too. And I can talk myself up while I'm beating your face in.
That's a real,
Does it just it just happens and you don't know? Like when you talk
Yeah,
shit, yeah,
dude, it does.
yeah.
I
It's
felt
not like
my
yeah.
family when I fought in October. I was like clearly beating the kid up. I was 30 seconds away from just like an easy 30-27, and I'm like smashing his face. Like I said, he's got blood coming out of his mouth. He's got a black eye, and I'm like yelling at him. My family, who are very like not like l less violent people, very smart people, but like not they're just not fighters, right? And they're like, "Did you have to do that? Like, did you have to yell at him and talk to him?" And I was like, I wasn't
You
trying
didn't
to.
have any
It
control over
just
it.
happened.
Yeah.
It just and part of it was what we talked about being personal. The kid that I fought last year in October, he went to school with one of my friends from high school and went to college with her. And she was like, "Yeah, I tried to be nice to him." And he said, like, watch out because I'm gonna knock your boy the fuck out. And I was like, oh, really? Okay. And so then I started yelling at him in the cage, and I was like, I didn't plan that. It just kind of happened. And it's that tenacity, that violence just kind of comes out as soon as I get that green light to go. That's just the way it is. And I don't want to change that because I feel like it helps, you know. I don't like see red and lose vision, but it's like if I feel myself flowing, that's when it starts to come out. I've never been losing and I've been like, fuck you on my way down, right?
yeah.
It just kind of comes out naturally, and I like that.
Yeah, that flow state's kind of also like a primal state where you're just
Hmm.
like, like if you see somebody who's like injured, like, a wounded gazelle, you're like, I'm going in for the kill.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know what I mean? I think that's something that
Do you think
you
that's like
either
a part
have.
of being competitive, like a competitive nature?
Yeah, and I also think it's like how you approach it too. Like I think he approaches fighting the right way, where like you just like accept all outcomes.
Hmm.
I think that's big. Like I think accepting it and then like being able to go out and he also understands the level of danger too. So like there can be a wounded person that just fucking hucks a overhand,
Hmm.
then you're flat on your face.
Hmm.
I mean, so I think there's a little bit of that.
And that's one of the things that I'm sure you felt the same way, but like when I'm sitting in the hotel a couple hours before, I have to mentally accept the fact like some people are like I can't possibly visualize an outcome where I lose. And I get that from a competitive mindset. I do. But for me, I prefer to approach it like I do most other things in my life. I don't want to change it just for the fighting. I feel like it's not true to who I am. For me, I'm like, I'll approach it as a realist, and I have to accept that hours before, I'm like, this could end with me waking up and being like, what happened, dude? Why am I on my back here? Why can't I feel my legs? You know? I just have to kind of be okay with that. And as soon as I accept that, I'm like, okay, if that's the worst thing that can happen, then
Hmm.
all
Yeah,
right,
I
let's
agree.
go.
You do have to like accept that outcome. I remember when I like right before I had my amateur debut when I was training in Columbus with Matt Brown, he told me, and it really stuck with me, still use it. He was like, I don't plan after parties, I don't do anything. I intend to die. And I was like, yo, that's fucking crazy. And I remember like having my Miami debut and like people were asking me, I was like, no. I was like, I could either be in the hospital or we could go hang out. Like if I make it through it, let's go hang out. But if I don't, like
Yeah.
I have full intention to be in the hospital. You know what I mean? And it hasn't happened yet. But like that's something like that's why I don't want my mom to hear this, but like why I bring my mom flowers is like genuinely like if the last thing I ever did was bring my mom flowers for my fight and I died in the cage,
Hmm.
I'm okay with it, right? You have to accept that level of like, because it's like it is literally like could be life or death situations. They're
Hmm.
not. There's no games to it. You know what I mean? So that's something that you have to accept, and that's something Matt said that really fucking stuck with me, and I was like, damn,
Especially from someone like him, because I'm sure it
yeah,
came across very genuine.
yeah. He just said it matter of fact. You know what I mean? He was just like, yeah, I don't plan any after parties. So it's like I might die, and I was like, fuck. I have a fight next month. Am I gonna die? And it took me getting fucking rocked in my pro debut to like accept it. And it took like 6 fights for me to like accept it, like, yo, I could get fucking flatlined in front of my mama. And then it's like it's changed and I think I've had more focused performances since then when I accepted it. Um it's a reality. Like it's a dangerous game. And the higher the level gets, the more fucking dangerous it gets. And the
Hmm.
more drastic the things that could happen to you are because motherfuckers hit harder. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So it's a crazy, crazy sport we do. It takes some crazy people, but it also takes smart people.
I tell people after the like when I talked about that Thai fight, it was the first and only time I've ever been dropped in a fight, and it was with that head kick. And I remember like my first thought, I was like, "Oh, this isn't sparring anymore. Like he's trying to take my head off of my shoulders right now." And it was like having that in K or that in ring realization of like, "Oh shit, you're trying to like hurt me." You know,
Mhm.
that was the weirdest like just a weird mental shift that a lot of people don't experience and most people don't experience until they're in the cage
That's
and
why so many people
they
on the
get hit.
street are so fucking delusional
Yeah.
because there's a difference between somebody that really truly wants to hurt you and how many times has somebody actually had their hands on somebody else where that's the goal and by
Yeah.
somebody that can actually do it.
Yeah, and you don't
You
realize
know,
that like when
there's
you're
that's a
sparring, you're
that's
like,
a
oh,
that is a very real thing. Even in grappling, like there's a difference between open mat, live training, and going and competing against somebody that wants to beat you. The way they grab a hold of you, the
mhm.
way they take that first takedown. I mean, it's different.
A lot of people aren't comfortable with it either, right? And even if they think they're comfortable with it, like your body has a way of like letting you know you're not, right?
Hmm.
Your arms stop, like your what's it called? Like when your glycogen comes out and you're
Hmm.
like,
Fear response.
yeah, well, you're just like your hands don't work, you're shaking, you know what I mean? You're
Yeah.
like, and then
Mhm.
you get off the mat and your body just has this adrenaline dump. That's the word I was looking for. Your adrenaline dump, and you're just like, oh my God, right?
Yep.
You were like terrified before. And sometimes you can like figure it out. I've been competing my whole entire life, so I have like when it's grappling, I have a very good understanding of it. I'm just starting to get an understanding of it with MMA. But it's fucking crazy sport. All of them are. Like
Hmm.
jujitsu, it's not fucking basketball. You know what I mean? Like it's actually you can get choked out in front of, or you could break your arm in front of whoever's there. It's very serious,
I send leg snaps to my brother all the time.
dude.
I'm like,
Yeah,
check out this submission. And then he'll fucking send me, he'll be like, yuck. Like, what are you, why are
Yeah.
you doing that to me? I can't stand watching shit like that.
yeah,
I'm like, hey, by the way, sign up 50% off.
and I think like being able to like be playful in such a dangerous thing is so it's so like unique and like the people at the gyms, it's just crazy to me.
Hmm.
We're all just comfortable with like trying to kill each other, but
Yeah.
like jokingly trying to
Hmm.
kill each other.
That's like
It's
what I said to you
interesting.
on like last week. It's like we'll have like 5 minutes where we are actually just trying to hurt each other. And then afterwards it's all cool. It's all
Yeah.
good and friendly, you know? It's
The
such a weird thing.
the first
Hmm.
time I realized that like Max was like he was like, all right, yeah. So we were at the Stout Muay Thai card. I like knew I like Max. I was like he reminds me of myself. But he like was convinced that I couldn't hold him down for five
We're just
minutes.
gonna keep spreading this
Some
misinformation. It's
shit.
crazy.
He was talking to Vince about Vince not being able to hold him down for an hour. Right. And I was like, Vince could hold you down for an hour because he could. And we're sitting there talking about it. And then Max, like in the middle of the conversation, looks at me and he's like, well, I was like, I think I could. And he was like, you can't hold me down for a round. And I was like, what? What?
This needs to be fact checked.
I wish I was mic'd up, but I wasn't. There was witnesses. And then the next time we sparred, I double legged him within 2 seconds, held him down for the entire round. There was a minute break in between.
We just rotated between mount and back triangle for
Yeah,
about 5 minutes.
for about 5 minutes. There was a minute break in between. I did not let him up. I yelled at Will. I was like, no, we're gonna keep going. Everybody else was like stopping. Like went for the whole minute. And then the next round, I also held him down. So it was 11 minutes. That's 2 rounds and an extra minute. But he got up and was just like so like fuck
Mhm.
about it. I was like, all right, this kid's gangster. I like him.
Yeah.
It takes like he just like owned it, and then like he was also like pissed.
Dude, I was real
He was
pissed.
fucking mad.
I'm not
I
like
was leaving Tuesday night, like I was walking off, and I just saw him like in the corner, like borderline about to cry, just like fucking stewing. And I was like, love you, Max.
yeah, I was just you man.
So,
This
so this argument at the beginning of this conversation is the second time you've owned him.
oh my God.
Oh yeah, yeah, it was.
That's great. So how do you see this fight, like as far as matchup wise?
Like just how it'll play out in cage.
Yeah, sure. I mean, strengths, weaknesses, like what do you see? Why do you feel like you have such a great? I don't know a whole lot about him.
I mean, he's like Lucas said, he's tough. You know, he's a
Tough, scrappy
yeah,
dude
he's a
from
scrapper, right?
yeah.
That's part of what excited me about. Also, look at his resume or his fights.
A good people.
I yeah, he's fought some good people. I hate the fact that in all three of my MMA fights, I've been to a decision three times. That drives me crazy, right? He is has six fights and one decision, which to me, I'm like, okay, so we've got a good chance, win or lose here, that this is going to be a finish. And that is also something that excites me, where I'm like, all right, this is kind of a unstoppable force meets immovable object type thing. Or
Hmm.
like something is going to give here. Either you're going to get another decision, which over 9 minutes is like, I don't know, I feel like something is going to give here. Um, Game plan wise, like we do have a game plan. This is the first time that I've actually worked with Mike and Will extensively on kind of like film watching and breaking down an opponent and actually setting like real intentions. So we do have a game plan that I don't want to get too much
Yeah,
into.
yes, no, keep that to
But
yourself.
like technically on his part, I mean, he's a scrapper. That's what he is. He's going to he technically like as a striker, I don't on the as a striker, I don't think he's remotely better than me. Everyone knows who watches me, who spars me, who trains with me, knows that if I had a preference, we're going to stay on the feet the whole time, right? Part of that's just where I like to be, but I want it to be exciting. Like I said, I fight because I want to show, or I got into it initially because I'm like, I want to show everybody how tough I can be, right? And there's some of that in grappling, but a lot of times that kind of like letting your nuts hang, that's going to be on the feet.
Hmm.
And I like when we talk about like fighting mentalities, a lot of people break under the lights. They can fight real well in the gym, but then they go out and they get under those bright lights and they get in the cage by surrounded by everyone and the pressure kind of gets to them, right? I always appreciated that my brain just never worked like that. I want there to be as big a crowd as possible that I can fight for because I want to show everybody. I want to put on a show for everybody, win or lose. I want there to be a good show. I'd rather lose a fun fight than win a boring one, right? That's always the mentality I had going into it. And I think that Drew is a good opponent for that because I don't think win or lose, he wants to have a boring fight either. That might change once, I think if you look at the last fight, that mentality kind of changes a bit once you have to spend a couple minutes on the feet with me. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what he did, if he just kind of gets pieced up for 3 minutes and then is like, yeah, let's see if we can just lay on him for 2 rounds. But I think that if that doesn't become his game plan, I think that it's going to be a stand up. I think it's going to be a scrap for as long as it lasts. He's gonna try and come forward and put dumb pressure on me. Not dumb pressure like he's stupid, but I just don't think he has any technical advantages on the feet aside from he's a little bit bigger than me, right? He's got some size on me, but technically he's not better on the feet. He doesn't utilize his kicks or his punches as setups nearly as well as I do. He definitely doesn't have the footwork that I do. I think that I don't know if I'm the best amateur fighter in the area, but I think that I have some of the best footwork in the area. I think that's something I take a lot of pride in, and I try to teach that to some of the people that I'll teach up north in Zelienople. I take a lot of pride in my movement and my footwork, and I don't think that he's going to be able to compete with that at all. And you saw when I fought Val Caruso, I take a lot of pride in my takedown defense. I didn't do a great showing of that last time out, but I think there were some other factors there that aren't going to be nearly as at play this time around. So I think it'll be a good scrap on the feet. I think that I'm going to piece him up for as long as it lasts on the feet, but we'll see. He might decide to try and change it up and drag me to the ground, and I wish him the best of luck with that. But as long as it lasts, I think it's going to be a fun fight on the feet. I think it'll be a good scrap because I know he's going to come forward and look for that fight. And I will oblige him for as long as he wants to stay on the feet with me because I'm going to make it very painful. Lucas knows some of my some of my game plan from last week. I'm not just looking to put his lights out, I'm going to hurt him physically, and we'll see how long he wants to deal with that. But as long as he wants to deal with it, it'll be a fun fight. And that's what I'm looking for. We got 9 minutes here. We got no shins, ground and pound. We got the advanced AMI rules. Big deal for me. I'm very excited to get into that rule set. And we're going to be placed higher up on the card now. We got to be above all the novice amateurs.
Who's headlining that card?
Ethan Goss.
Goss. Yeah.
I'm commentating.
Are you really?
Yeah, the whole card.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll be commentating Max.
You better give me some real biased commentary there, man.
Yeah, it'll be hard not. That's what I was thinking. I was like, it's gonna be so hard not to like be biased, bro.
Yeah,
but at least I know Landefeld pretty well. I know his career, so I can like throw some stats out there. But yeah, we got who else on the card?
We got Brian Mitchell.
Brian. Those are only two. Who else?
Oh, Tyler Fleming.
Tyler Fleming.
Is Drizzy still on the card?
Drizzy. Drizzy's on the card. He's
Drizzy's
a fucking nut job, bro. Tasmanian Devil. He's crazy.
Dude, he's wild.
Still one of my favorite knockouts that I've seen live in the regional.
Dude, I had the best seat in the house and I fucking didn't see it.
Did you really? You missed it?
Yeah, dude. Well, I was like, Will, dude, should I grab his water? Blah, 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 blah.
Oh, yeah, you were in the
dead
corner,
body
yeah.
falling, and I was like,
dude, I blacked out. We were backstage watching it, and I just remember seeing it, and then me and Anthony Hogeback were grabbing each other, like bouncing up and down. I remember Andy Anderson was like the scaffolding was getting knocked over, and he was like screaming, trying to hold the scaffolding back down.
Yeah,
everyone was just losing their minds. Jonas, who's like when he fought was a flyweight, he's running around. He's like, "What you know about that flyweight power, baby?" It was wild, dude.
Yeah, Drizzy's fucking
Drizzy's
and he's fighting
Tariq, right?
Yeah.
He's good.
Tariq from I forget what you're gonna get to. But a Pittsburgh guy, he's fighting another Pittsburgh guy. He's fighting a Pittsburgh guy.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Mitchell's got a tough fight. I don't know anything about the dude Tyler Fleming's fighting, but like
we're gonna have a good crowd.
We have an army of amateurs, and I think Max and Luke and a couple guys are like leading the helm of that. I think Max probably has a high ceiling for anybody on the fight team. The age, skill set. I think he's really, really fucking good, and he's got the confidence to back it up. And I'm super excited to go watch him fight. I remember sitting at his Amy debut and just like, damn. And then I remember him looking at his hands after the fight. There's a picture of it, but I remember him looking at his hands like, he fucking did that.
Have I told you the backstory behind that photo?
Nah.
This is a great photo that he likes it a lot. I had it on my Instagram a couple times now. But I remember I was walking around the cage and I looked over and I saw it when I talked about it. I saw him. He was like busted up and he had blood dripping out his face. And I just looked at it and I was like, again, I just felt like such an asshole during this whole fight. In hindsight, I was like, man, I was such a dick. But I remember looking over at him and I went like this, like checking my nose, even though I know there was no blood. But I went like this and I was like, okay. And I looked back at him and I was like, yeah. It felt like such a dick. But
Dude,
the picture is really cool.
You're gonna watch these fights in like a couple of years and be like, man, I hate that kid. Because I watched my Miami debut and I'm like, bro, who did I think I was? But you need that level of confidence when you go out there, man. It's funny.
February 1st, Monroeville Convention Center.
December.
I'm sorry, you're February.
21st.
That's right.
Yeah.
December 21st, Monroeville
21st.
Convention Center. Everybody tune in. Your boy's gonna be on the commentary. It's gonna be a fun one. Max is gonna put on a goddamn show. I guarantee that.
Yeah, we're gonna have a good show. It's gonna be a good crowd. We're both local guys. 247 does a good job promoting us, so I think it's gonna be a lot of fun.
I'm excited.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, dude. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, bro.
I had a good time.